Hello everyone. I'm Kristina Stavrevska, a local coordinator for SFL Macedonia, and also a team member of Libertania, Center for Contemporary Politics. Today, we're going to be talking about how to help ourselves create a sense of certainty in these seemingly uncertain times through tools and techniques, which Rob is going to tell us, on overcoming any emotional disempowerment that go inside our heads. If you have any questions, just write them up for the Q&A session at the end. The speaker today is Rob Duffy. As you well know, Rob is a success and emotional mastery coach from Dublin, Ireland. He's also a certified NLP practitioner and life and business coach. He has an honors bachelor's degree in social science with psychology. He is also an alumni of Students For Liberty. So Rob, the floor is yours, or as we may say, the platform.
Awesome, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. I appreciate, it doesn't look like I can share my screen.
Kristina, if you make Rob a co-host, he will be able to share.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Today I kind of want to teach you about some tips and tools that I've been learning about in my coaching practice over the past 6 years since I've been doing this, and I want to help you overcome any sort of challenges that you might have around maybe you're experiencing fear, maybe this time is bringing up certain uncertainties around what the future might hold. So today we're going to unpack all that, and I'm going to maybe encourage you to look in places where you might not have been looking in the past while. So let's see. Okay. This is kind of annoying that I have to do this way, but such is life. Okay, so who is this for? This is for anyone who wants to increase the amount of personal freedom in their own lives. I know SFL does some great work regarding governments and stopping tyranny and big government and regulation and all that. But for me, I believe that for many people, the biggest tyranny that we face is in our own heads, and the internal torment in terms of that's offered from our own mind, the stories and scripts that we might have normalized and accepted as true. So perhaps today is the day that you tell yourself a different story and start listening to a different narrative, and become aware that the narrative that might be running in your mind right now is maybe not serving you, and there's scope for you to change that and think about something new, and think about something new for your long-term interest. So exciting. Now let's see. Let's talk about revolutions. So that's what we're here today, to talk about the revolution of consciousness. And I don't really like the idea of revolution. I think they're pretty idiotic, to be honest. Most cases, they end up violent and bloody and are ridiculous. Not all of them, but most of them. But all revolutions begin with this thing, our consciousness. When a number of individuals become aware of some sort of goal that they share, they start using their minds to focus in one coherent direction in their lives. And that's how all changes come about, through the momentum that we put into and the effort that we put into what it is that we're moving towards. So what we're looking at is trying to gain some sort of momentum towards where we're going. And I'd ask you the question of you all: what do you believe people need to start thinking and using their consciousness for to bring about the worlds that we want to live in, this free world. If a world where sort of liberty is going to reign, what is it that we need to aim at? And I believe the solution, it doesn't come from one person's actions, but it comes from a lot of us together moving towards self-knowledge, self-ownership, and knowing ourselves and knowing what we're capable of fulfilling in terms of the roles that are required to bring around this free world. Because ultimately finding harmony and being able to choose love over hate and increasing that capacity around the world, we have to be the example of what is possible in the world. So I think this requires us to become more conscious, more aware. And I found in my coaching work that one of the greatest challenges that most people face is thinking uncomfortable thoughts and feeling strong feelings like fear, anger, frustration, and all of those nice feelings. So this is what I want to talk about today. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of self-knowledge. It's obviously one of the biggest reasons that I became a coach. And self-knowledge is defined as the understanding of oneself and our own motives and our character. And this requires us to become brave and facing down any ghosts that we might be aware of that might have held us back, and to grow stronger and to solve these internal puzzles. We're going to have to figure out some aspects of ourselves that seem odd or out of place. But when we do, the rewards that we receive is the land of freedom and bliss. And this is, in my opinion, where true liberty exists. Socrates said, "Know thyself." And I think that that's very apt here. So this is the next slide. So let's look at this fear thing and how does it work, right? So there are real things in the world, obviously, to be fearful of. This shark, if it was right behind you, would be one. And there are healthy responses that motivate us to preserve our life. And like if a person with a knife or a gun is attacking us, we have a fight and flight response. Now, this response over the years has become maladaptive, and the environment that we live in, because we've less things to be fearful of in our waking life, because this is obviously the best time to be alive ever, and this fear response basically has become perception based. A lot of the stories that we have in our own mind are what create these strong emotions. So, and we all have these voices in our head. We all have these stories that run underneath the bonnet. And in my coaching, I call this sort of the what if monster. And this what if monster whispers in our ear and says, what if this really bad thing is going to happen? What will I do? And stuff like that. And that just isn't helpful. And this is exacerbated by the news. We might be well advised to limit the amount of news that we watch, like especially nowadays. The news that we watch could be filling us full of ideas that they're not really helpful to make us feel connected to our power. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that that is kind of the aim of the news. They want to sell you a sensationalist version of reality that disempowers you but leaves you wanting to come back tomorrow to listen to more. I'm a big fan of media diet, just getting rid of it altogether, or really limiting it to a couple of sources. You can stay informed, but don't overdose, I would say, on the media, because they can really disempower you in terms of your emotional reality. It might be a good idea to microdose on the media and the news. Now, this, I have to say, I really don't like this phrase, and I don't know if it's popular in Macedonia or wherever it's popular, but I do not like it. It's slipped into the cultural lexicon here in Ireland anyway, and I'm going to try and encourage you all to hijack this and to personalize this phrase, the new normal. Like, what is a new normal? Can be anything that we want it to be. Perhaps like you've been experiencing something in your life in a way that's not really been life enriching and something that you've been hoping. So today I'd encourage you to set yourself a goal to do something to create a new normal, a life enriching normal, something beautiful. And that is the theme of this book. This was one of the first books that I read when I was 18. It gave me a glimpse into the power of the mind and what we can do when we focus our attention and begin to ponder life as a kind of half full glass rather than a half empty glass. And here's some aspects of it. The conscious mind, I want to draw your attention to this part here, which is very salient for libertarians and people interested in freedom. We have a tendency to focus on and overvalue being logical, rational, and analytical. And these are conscious mind activities. And that is absolutely useful in the context of philosophical thinking and being data-driven and scientifically rigorous. But it isn't helpful when it drives our personal life and our internal world. Human beings are not robots. And it's important to remember that, because emotions and the landscape of feelings, they tend to get a really bad rap amongst some libertarians, and that kind of annoys me. And I think we need to do better in this realm. The subconscious mind is highly susceptible and believes everything that you say to it. This is why it's super important to think about what it is and monitor your self-talk. If you're saying negative things about yourself, to yourself, about yourself, you're only going to harden unhelpful and disempowering beliefs that probably are not going to serve you in the end. So I hope you're kind of still following me. I'm going to get a little bit technical and talk a bit about the brain here. So this part of the brain, this is called the reticular activating system. This is the part of the brain which controls what we focus on. And when we focus on these things, it offers us up new awareness. So we basically program our brain with what to scan for in the world. So let's say, for example, let's say you say to yourself, I always get caught in traffic. Your brain is going to then deliver you more awareness at the times that you are caught in traffic. And it's going to bring you a stronger sense of victimhood and frustration every time that that happens. Like if you say things like, people won't like me, you're going to program your reticular activating system to scan your environment for examples to reconfirm that bias, which you've been self-programming in there by saying that over and over again. So it's really important to monitor that habitual stuff that we repeat in our mind. Self-talk is so important. And if you're not careful about what you say and are nice to yourself and watch your words, you could be casting spells on yourself that are not helpful and they're not helping you. So it's important to watch out for that stuff. I really like this quote, which is from the book, where Murphy says, keep your conscious mind busy with expectations of the best. Because when you say things and you start feeling good about yourself, you're going to start beginning to expect more good things from yourself. Like, who really wants to feel down in the dumps and disempowered in their being for the majority of their lives? If you're not already, why don't you begin to practice being in good states and enjoying your body and your life and all those things, but really consciously doing it? One of my favorite states of mind is to be playful. And I don't only just do this with myself, I always do it with my partner and with my colleagues and friends. I think the great thing about playfulness is that it brings a lightness to things. It invites us not to take life so seriously, because God knows a lot of us take life so seriously. And I'd really encourage people to bring a little playfulness into your life. And I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Now, because ultimately, what is the goal here, right? So the goal is to choose some sort of beliefs and embrace the beliefs inside of our subconscious mind, which bring about the life that we actually want. So you might consciously want to be healthy, but maybe another belief exists underneath that says, quote, I'm not the type of person who goes to the gym, which actually was the case for me for a while up until last year when I got my ass in shape and sorted that belief out specifically. I did a little bit of work to sort of uncover the fact that that was in there. Like, there was a belief that said, I'm not that type of person that goes to the gym. I had this perception that people that go to the gym are a-holes, but that wasn't serving me, and I changed it. So, or relationships. We might have a sort of a strong sense that we want to have good relationships, but we get hijacked by our behaviors, being controlled by subconscious beliefs that might say something like, you're not worthy of love, or whatever the case might be. And this is incredibly common. Like, this is what I help people uncover within themselves, and it's horrible, really. So because we have to remember, the subconscious mind is really running the show. It's responsible for 95% of your life, including all your habitual thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your memories, which flash up at certain times randomly. The skills that you automatically do, like driving a car, the instincts, and most behaviors that are learned off by heart, like talking or playing the guitar or something like that. Your subconscious is incredibly powerful. And it is alterable, and it is open to suggestion, by embracing, your actual consciousness and focusing on certain wave states in your mind through meditation. And this is kind of what I help my clients with in the coaching context. I help them understand what are the narratives that exist, and I help them pair new feeling states and new narratives to help them over time embody and naturally, through the auto-suggestion, live lives that they actually want. Because a lot of the time people are run by default, and default is nasty sometimes. So something to think about. I really love this quote by Henry Ford. He said, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right. And this rings true to me big time, because I used to be a very different person. I was quite pessimistic about certain things. And then one day I said to myself, do you know what? This isn't serving me at all. I think I'll change my mind. And I started to believe that good things were going to happen. And guess what? They actually did. And this is all related to this reticular activating system. I was priming myself to believe that good things were going to happen. I set an expectation that good things were going to happen, and I focused on what's controllable, right? There's certain things in our lives that are controllable, and there's certain things that are not controllable. And when you focus on what is controllable and understands that this is the realm of where you give yourself that liberty, like the thoughts that you think, the media you consume, the activities you pursue, the people that you have in your life. When you focus on those things, and you're able to quickly program and scan your environment for things, you can get quick wins, and it feels good. And this builds momentum, and it gives you new ideas, and new empowering circumstances come into your life. Some might call it even divine intervention. I don't really want to jump down that rabbit hole today, to be honest, because that is a rabbit hole. So I want to talk to you about this idea. This is the work of Carol Dweck, who is a Stanford University psychology professor in America, and she wrote a book called Mindset, and she viewed there are two types of people in the world. There are people who adopt, and by the way, you do adopt it. We totally have a choice in which mindset we adopt, but first we have to become aware of it. The first one is people with a fixed mindset. People with a fixed mindset, they view intelligence and the skills that they have as fixed or static. They see themselves as largely incapable of changing. People might say, I am not good at X. And they're unwilling to really put in the efforts to improve. I'm sure everybody knows somebody who has this type of mindset. And then there's the person with the growth mindset. And this is what I would really encourage you to adopt if you haven't already. These are people who believe that, growth is possible through effort to develop new abilities, taking time in the world to grow and achieve things that are worth striving for, whatever it is for you. So while the fixed mindset person will avoid and maybe feel threatened by people who succeed and do all those things, a growth mindset person will probably view that person as someone who is inspirational and someone to try and emulate. So I want you to ask yourself, is there, in all the different areas of your life, is there evidence where you have a fixed mindset, and is there evidence where you have a growth mindset? We can have some areas of our lives where we have a fixed mindset and some areas where we have a growth mindset, but the key here is to become aware where they are and how you can change your fixed mindset over to a growth mindset. Because, you know, life can only get better, in my opinion, if you adopt that type of mindset. This was something that I found while I was doing a little bit of digging around this week to prepare for this. It relates to liberty and society as a whole. The benefit mindset is kind of a tool for leaders to consider in terms of global challenges, just like this virus, for instance. And it can help us think in terms of the benefit and more globally, and how can we make a meaningful difference on what matters to us all. It builds on the growth mindset idea and talks about asking the question, why do we do what we're doing in our actions? And this way we can focus on bringing about the best in each other and the best for the world. Sounds a little bit John Lennon, but you know, there you go. I think it's a good message, and it's something to think about if you are a leader, because lots of my SFL buddies are leaders. And so, like, why am I talking about this? What's the goal of this, Rob? Why do you want us to be growing? For me, I truly believe that everybody should pursue growth, because, and especially us though, as advocates of liberty, we're promoting a system in the world that a lot of people, they label as sort of a utopia, and in many ways it kind of is. Like, if compared to what we have now, where we're going, where we, as classical liberals, libertarians, we want to go somewhere which is completely different to right now, right? So we as libertarians should really strive to become self-actualizers. If we're not walking the walk and talking the talk, we need to really be living those values if we want to communicate that message to other people. So how do we become self-actualized? I think a big part of this is consciously working towards getting our needs met, our own needs met. And as Maslow's work explains here, what's involved in each level, like the physiological needs and the safety needs, we need to satisfy all these underlying needs before we can think about the higher order needs in our lives. And, you know, we really can be doing a lot of that preparatory work by looking at how we relate to ourselves. And that's kind of why I want to really focus on how you are talking to yourself, how you're relating to yourself. I love this quote by Camus, and it supports what I've said here. I think it's really true that through being free and showing that our lives are free, that becomes infectious. People see that. And when people see that you are free in your own mind and that you've got confidence and charisma, people want that. People want to be around that. And they want to know more about you. They want to know what you think and believe. And we need to become that as advocates of liberty. We need to be the envy of people. So how do we do that? To begin going in that direction, no matter like where you are in your life, and you can start today to become more free within yourself. You really, really should give up this idea about being perfect. Perfect does not exist. So many people have the idea that, like, if it can't be perfect, what's the point? And this is a real plague. This really gets me annoyed when I'm working with people, because the idea of perfection has been singed into people's brains as something that they have to achieve before they step forward and move forward. And I want to tell you, no, that is so wrong. You can start gaining momentum today, right now, by changing your mind. You can adopt a mission in life, and you can do so much today by changing your mind. This diagram here is a nice representation of what perfectionism is. It's impossible. It's not a real achievable thing. It doesn't exist. It's a trick that your mind plays, and it really offers you an excuse to not move. So I really encourage everybody, don't listen to the ideas and those narratives in your mind that say, has to be perfect, because you just need to listen to how you're reasoning and adopt a new narrative that calls it out, and adopt a narrative that says, you know, good enough is good enough for me. And that is the truth of that. The reality is, though, we all kind of have self-limiting beliefs, and they don't serve us. Some of these beliefs are really hidden for us, and you don't have to believe everything that you believe today. You're able to change your mind But first of all, we have to become aware. We really have to become aware. It's easy to change a belief, but we have to become aware of where they exist. And those beliefs get changed in the subconscious mind, as we talked about before. But we really do need to become aware of where they are and what they're doing. So how do we do that? It's kind of a little bit sneaky. So what I focus on in my coaching programs, because, you know, the answer to our whole life and joy and the joy and bliss that we all seek is contained within, it's really contained within us if we use it properly. This idea is not mine. This idea is not mine. Sorry, that was the wrong slide. But I really want to help you focus on all of this, because this is really going to change your life. If you can take what is inside of this and really embed this knowledge into your life, this is where joy and bliss will exist for you. So I don't know who created this, but I've kind of adopted it into my own little version. And so let me quickly explain it. And if I don't fully explain this, I have on my website a free 5-day challenge. And on day 4 of that challenge, I explain this in its totality. So, okay, I want you to look at the top line. We have circumstances, we have situations and facts. And these are the areas of our lives that we can't really control much. And this is mostly the area that we actually get in trouble, because we have thoughts about our circumstances in our lives. And our thoughts include our beliefs and all these things in the realm of our consciousness. It's actually the only area, our thoughts on the second line, the thoughts is the only area that we have any control over in this whole model. So where we mostly sort of recognize that something is wrong is on the next level, on the third line, in our feelings. Most people come and they understand that they might need some coaching, or they might need to go to a psychologist if they feel a bit icky. They might feel fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, anger, whatever it is. And I would urge people that might be recognizing that within themselves to step back up to the thoughts line, because the thoughts are what create our emotions and our feelings. So our thoughts lead to our feelings that sometimes we might not even be conscious of what it is that we're thinking. And that leads us to feel these disempowered feelings. So it's super important, as I said earlier, if we are feeling kind of down in the dumps, it's likely that we're not really motivated to do much. We might be taking many actions to move forward in our goals. So it's our feelings that actually lead to the actions that we take in the world. We can see the fourth line is actions. So if we want to take actions in the world that require a bit of effort, we need to feel excited maybe, or we need to feel motivated to do those things that are going to get us to the results and the outcomes that we want in our lives. You'll see at the bottom there, the actions create the results and the outcomes that we have in our lives. And if we're taking consistent action towards any specific goals, the likelihood is that we're going to achieve those outcomes, right? So I really recommend that you singe this matrix into your brain. And pro tip, start from the bottom. Start thinking about what results do I actually want to achieve in my life. Get clear on very specifically what it is that you want to achieve. And then work your way upwards in the model and think about what actions am I going to be required to make this become a reality. And then think about all the feelings that you need associated so that you can easily and effortlessly take those actions. And see if you're able to then access those feelings and think about what the current thoughts and beliefs that you have in that realm. And if you find that like you don't have the necessary beliefs installed in your mind, then I recommend that you create a belief bridge, which is probably something a little bit too complicated for this webinar, but I would absolutely be happy to jump on a call and discuss this stuff. You can also join my Facebook group, which is called Mapping Your Mastery, where we talk about all this. We have an awesome community of people, lots of best fellers in there, and we talk about increasing our awareness and making an epic life for ourselves. So that is what I recommend. So, because the reality is, we all need to build a bridge to where it is that we're going in our lives, right? If we don't have a sense of where we want to go and something to strive towards that we can feel a sense of control over and feel certain, because maybe we're feeling icky at the moment, because like at this time, there's so much uncertainty around about what's going on. Our minds and our thoughts are the one place that we are able to gain a sense of certainty with. So if you can sort of think about what are those things that are going to be in your best interest to think and to feel, this is where your liberty truly exists. So I would really encourage you guys to start taking time out of your day and start slotting time slots into your day to think about what it is that you want to create with your future. Imagine yourself in a scene that you want to create maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. Imagine that scene. Get really vivid with it. How do you feel in that scene? What does it smell like? What does your body feel like? What are the emotions maybe that you're feeling in that scene? What does it sound like? Who are the people surrounding you? What are the kind of things that they're saying to you? Because we want to make this as vivid as possible and really think about these things and allow our minds to run free and imagine these things often, and to really think about what we might even think of as impossible right now for us. I don't like this word impossible. It really stops a lot of people in their tracks. And do you know who didn't care about what was possible or impossible? Innovators who took massive leaps forward in the world, like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all those people who have helped us to get to where we are today. They really didn't care about what was possible or impossible. Like, this really is the greatest time to be alive. And they didn't care what people told them. You know, if someone says that's impossible to do, don't believe them. Don't absolutely believe them, because you can impress, like they impressed into their subconscious, that you can do whatever the hell you want if you adopt those beliefs. They were steadfast to their visions of the world that they wanted. And we're living through that now, guys. So the impossible is absolutely possible. So I want you to ask yourself, what are you believing is impossible in your life? And I want you to challenge it, because nothing is impossible. We're all incredibly amazing, and we're all absolutely capable of greatness when we put effort towards moving towards what it is that our deepest desires want for us. They say that where there's a will, there's a way. And I think it should be, where there's a will, there's a shit ton of effort required to get you on that way. But if you put in the effort, and many people don't, unfortunately, many prefer their excuses. But if you put in the effort, you can get what you want to achieve. And we are all kind of evolving towards what it is that we want. But it really starts with your mind and getting clear on who you are and really digging into that question and thinking about, what is it that you're accepting about yourself? What are the things maybe that you're resisting about yourself? What are the values that you're living in your life? And to think about those things and map it out. Where is it? What are the values that you need to adopt for your future to make the reality that you want in your life come true? Because it does come down to thinking about the values that we have and to exhibit those behaviors in the world. When you're living up to those values and what it is that that you're falling short on, it allows you to think about where I need to go and what I need to do. Like, a major incident happened to me 20 years ago. I nearly lost my life. And after that happened, I was lying in my hospital bed and I was thinking to myself, do you know what? I wasn't really responsible there. And it seemed to me at that point, I think responsibility is a good value. And I'm going to start to try and practice that and embody that more when I get out of this hospital. And I also wanted to be a little bit more valuable to myself and to the world. So I started to envision myself over time as a little bit more valuable to myself. And the more solids that became, the more I learned to honor and really sort of love that in myself. Because that is what living our values means. It's practicing that self-care so that we can admire ourselves moving into the future, becoming the person that we want to be. and achieving that vision by slowly taking steps. And it's okay to slip up every now and again. We mightn't honor our values every single day, but just get back on the horse and say, you know, I can get better, I can improve. Adopt that sort of sense of a growth mindset. Because that is what is important. So what can you guys do? I want to give you guys a few things to move you forward of what you can take control over in your future and harness your consciousness towards enriching that sense of yourself and that relationship with yourself. Nobody can take that away from you, and that's where liberty exists, in my opinion. So firstly, what I would encourage is to build your awareness. Become super curious about your brain and understand that you are not your thoughts. You have thoughts. You actually have thousands of thoughts every day, but you are not your thoughts. If you're like me, you have crazy thoughts sometimes. And I know that we all have a shadow, we all have a dark side, but if you can remember that those thoughts are just offers from your brain. They don't necessarily have to be taken. You don't take every offer of a date off somebody. So the brain is like that as well. It's going to offer you lots of mad stuff, but it's also going to offer you some amazing stuff. So be very selective in what it is that you're listening to in your brain, and call your brain out on its bullshit. I really promise that good things will happen when you start to do that. Secondly, what I would encourage is that you start writing your thoughts down. I began journaling about 6 or 7 years ago. I missed the odd day here or there, which doesn't really matter, but the practice is what's important. To just unpack what it is on your mind, because it's the thoughts that we don't unpack that cause our sense of anxiety, our sense of fear. All those icky feelings come from those thoughts that we leave in our brains, and they stack on top of each other, and it becomes just an overwhelming weight. So journaling and writing our thoughts down is an amazing way for us to get over that sense of what we are. I know I'm going a little bit over, but I'm just going to race through the next couple of slides. The third thing that I would really recommend is for you to get yourself a schedule. I recommend falling in love with an online scheduler like Google Calendar or something like that. It can really be a game changer to know what it is that you want to do. Set yourself up with knowing what it is. Put the actions for your mastery mission quests into your calendar and just follow it and just do it. That is a big game changer. Basically, that's really all I wanted to share with you guys today. If you kind of want to live in a world that is free from corruption, big government, all this bad stuff that us libertarians talk about, look inward. Look inward. I really recommend looking inward and create the free world here. So that's where you start. And then maybe, just maybe over time, you'll convince other people to listen to all these other ideas that we have. Thank you very much for listening to me today. And I'd love to field any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Rob. That was an amazing presentation. I mean, I didn't expect anything less, of course. So we have currently 2 questions. The first one is from Camila. How does lack of love and knowledge of yourself can result in one's job, career, life? How does a successful person look like as a person?
Well, for me, it's a person who loves themselves unconditionally in all areas, where they don't have any fractions or parts split off, where they might be unconscious, where they might be avoiding. That really is, to me, what it is, where success comes from. Because usually where people go wrong is that they get hijacked by things that they haven't attended to. Like people who avoid things like, and this was the case for me for years, I used to take a lot of drugs and I was avoiding parts of my life that I didn't like about myself. And it wasn't until I faced it head on and said, do you know what? There's something going on here that I'm not dealing with. And I got myself into therapy, got myself a coach, I got myself right. And those are the types of things where people don't avoid what is going on. There's lots of areas of our lives. There's lots of relationships that we have. There's lots of aspects of our life that we might be not considering how it creates those stories in our minds. Again, it comes back to the subconscious mind. There might be stories in there around certain things that we don't like about ourselves. We're pretty complex beings, and I've run through it in a quite a simplistic form, but you know, everybody is quite complex, but that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of life, to be able to look inward and say, what is it about me that I am not dealing with right now, and where is it that I have to look to raise that level of love that I have for myself.
Yeah, introspection.
Yeah, introspection, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. We have another question from Dennis. This might seem a little out of topic still. Adolescents and the youth are often rather pessimistic about the future of humanity, especially during these tough times. They kind of tend to turn depressed, sometimes violent and revolutionary in nature, even resort to communism. However, is it still okay to normalize this Weichschmerz as a natural result of their maturing minds and bodies? I mean, the same thing could result in a number of suicides and other bad effects on the society.
That's a pretty deep question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Weltschmerz means.
Me neither.
But yeah, like young people at this time, especially, like I know here in Ireland, there's lots of uncertainty for people that are taking exams. They haven't been to school in a long time. And yeah, like the danger is that they might be whipped up into a frenzy, some narratives that are available online saying, you know, these people are bad. There's lots of conspiracies out there that, you know, a lot of people are listening to. And that has the potential to whip people up into a frenzy and adopt bad ideas. But, you know, this is where we come in and offer people that sense of a much greater future when we do get back to a sense of normalcy, which we will, I've no doubt.
Of course.
But yeah, and it's another thing that I think about young people is that they don't have rites of passage anymore. We really have gotten rid of this idea of rites of passage for young people, and this is something that I'm working with my friend Kevin Flanagan on. We're thinking about all sorts of programs where we can help people with rites of passage, because young people really need rites of passage to claim their place in society, and I don't think we have that so much for young people anymore. And I would encourage people, like if you've got kids, give them that sense of rite of passage into adulthood so that they can see that there is a place for them and where they're going, because otherwise, unfortunately, they will adopt bad ideas like socialism and communism and fascism and whatnot.
Yeah. Also, we have another question from Julio. How do you build discipline for someone who tries, but keeps constantly failing?
Keep trying. Don't give up. I have written a book about this. It's on my website. You can catch it there for free. But like there's certain things that you can do. It's optimizing your environment to make sure that your environment is set up to be productive. Switch tasking can be a really bad habit, which our brain is set up to focus on one thing. And with different disciplines that we're doing in our day-to-day work and being productive, there is different parts of our brains that are at play. If we're switch tasking, and this can happen when you work on a computer and you've got maybe 20 tabs open and you see a notification ping, that can set your mind to lose track of what you were doing and go over to the other thing. So switch tasking is horrific for your productivity. So what I would say is look and see if you're doing any of that switch tasking. Turn your phone off. In fact, I really recommend turning all of your notifications off and putting your phone on silent. And that's what I meant about allocating time in your day. Really get clear on your day that I do emails at this time. I do my outreach or whatever it is that is in your job. If you can stack all of those different tasks that you have into specific times throughout your day and create that sense of discipline for yourself, I think that's how it works. I'd love to talk with you. I think we have talked before about this, but I'd love to talk to you again about this to get really structured on that. Shoot me an email.
It's just like a daily planner, which I use. That's how I got myself in order.
Yeah, daily planners for the win.
So, do we have any other questions? Okay, yes. Julia? But we're thinking on how to write them.
Has anyone else got a question? I'd love to answer a question. If nobody has a question, I really encourage people to jump over to my Facebook group. I put a lot of time in there to nurture that community and to try and help people with whatever is going on. It's called Mapping Your Mastery. I've also got a 5-day challenge that I ran, which helps you look at the question, who am I? What are my values? Your time management stuff, some of that stuff around the stories that can be in your mind and buried in your subconscious. And yeah, it's free on my website and it's free over on the Facebook group. So feel free to jump in.
Okay, so Julio is asking again, what do you mean by optimizing your environment?
So make sure that you don't have distractions around you. Make sure that everything that is in your environment is conducive to you focusing on what it is that you set your time out to do. So if you've got an article to write, make sure you've got a Word file open and that's it. Maybe you might have a notepad beside you to take notes, and that's literally it. Let your mind go to work on those things, and that's kind of what I mean about optimizing your environment.
Yeah.
If you've got people that are working around you, maybe have a discussion with them and tell them that you don't want to be disturbed for a certain amount of time. Those conversations can be a little bit, they can be interesting, but it's absolutely crucial that you do it to really optimize your time and your space, and to give yourself that sense of being able to go and give your best, because that's what it's all about, right? So much of our time gets wasted by being distracted and not focusing on exactly what it is that we need to do. So that's kind of what I mean. We can definitely have a discussion about that if you want.
Okay, never mind. So do we have any other questions? I guess not. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I would like to thank you, Rob, for participating in the webinar. I mean, this was amazing. And for all the attendees, stay tuned because we're going to do a lot of magic soon. And thank you for participating.